Hi guys, today's topic I'm going to show you how to set up the Sony A7S to record in 100 or 120 frames per second. Now before we get started, just make sure that you've set the camera to movie mode using the top dial, and then under your camera setting options, under movie you can select manual exposure or aperture priority, whichever one will work for you. To set this camera up to shoot in 100 to 120 frames per second is unfortunately not as straightforward as just merely selecting in the menu. We first need to set up a couple of things. So let's go and look at one of the first things we need to set up. Under the menu options on the little spanner box, we need to scroll down to menu 2 all the way down to PAL or NTSC. Now we have to choose between the color modes. In PAL mode we'll be able to record 100 frames per second, and in NTSC 120. The problem is though, we can't just change between these modes on the fly, because you see there, the moment I want to change to another mode, I have to reboot the camera and reformat the media that's in it, which is a problem if you only have one memory card on set. You have to remember about this. You actually do backups before you just switch between them. So there we go. Just remember that you have to choose PAL for 100 or NTSC for 120. And remember, you can't change on the fly. Now, the next setting is under menu. We have to scroll all the way back to camera settings and go down to file format. Under file format, we need to change the file format to XAVCS. This will allow us to record in a higher bit rate, and that's exactly what we need when we record at 100 or 120 frames per second. The problem just now is that my memory card does not support the recording of this higher bitrate file format, and the bitrate is around 50 megabits per second, so you need to have a card in your camera that's class 10 or above. But not just that, because if I take the memory card out, you'll see that it is a class 10 card, but it's only rated to 45 megabits per second, so we need to use a card of 50 or more, also at class 10. So I'm just going to swap it out for a 64 gigabyte card that's rated at 80 megabits per second. So let's see if that's going to work. There we go. So if I change file formats now, it's good, we're ready to go, we can record. Now let's set the camera to 100 frames per second. To do that, I'm just going to navigate to the next menu options, and under here under record settings we can flick to 100 frames per second. Now remember, if we were in NTSC mode we would have been able to select 120 frames per second. Now remember, when you record in 100 or 120 frames per second, that your image area will shrink down to an APS-C size, and the resolution we can record at is limited to only 720. So there you go, hope that helped. So remember, if you want to do 100 to 120 frames per second on this camera, choose carefully between your color modes, PAL or NTSC. Use the correct card, so that should be a card of class 10 or above, and with a speed of at least 50 megabits per second, preferably more. And also remember, you can only record then at 720p, limited to an APS-C size frame area.